This is the Executive Chamber Press Office Video Information Service news feed for Tuesday, July 21st, 1981. Our feed begins with shots of Governor and Mrs. Hugh Carey and their granddaughter Evangeline Stamalos arriving for a tour of the Cerebral Palsy Treatment Center in Albany. The center today held mortgage signing ceremonies for a new addition, which is partially being financed with $2.5 million in state funds. Following the tour is material for Sound Up Full of Governor Carey addressing the crowd. That followed by set-up shots of the ceremony, and finally an impromptu news conference. Concluding the feed are audio and video recorded at the State Capitol building this afternoon, where Governor Carey signed the Developmentally Disabled Bill into law, thus providing more services for disabled New Yorkers living in the community. Our feed begins shortly, so please keep your tapes rolling.
Hi, congratulations.
This is Angie. Say hello.
Yes, we got it.
Can we take a little walk?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Hi.
Oh, boy. Very nice.
Look, to show you some of the speech therapy rooms where we work with the children
Right.
who have speech difficulties. And we have all sorts of specialized equipment that needs to be utilized with our children. And we have nanny voices and various types of equipment that will enable them to speak by using computerization and things like that. These are the ones you're seeing the one here.
Oh, we have a visitor coming in today. Why you hang up the phone? Good morning. Good morning. Good to be with you again. It was mighty cold last time. Oh, boy. Oh. See you, thank you. Helping out? Huh?
Jean, look at the girl, look at the little girl, ask her
You rather
her
watch-
name.
rather
You
watch the
like
camera?
little girls, huh?
What's the name of your doggy?
What's your dog?
Oh, boy. That's the best one.
Mark.
Oh,
Nice.
another boy, Mark.
Bye. 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 You say bye, Jean?
Jean? Bye, Jean.
Bye, Jean. Good boy.
Have a good trip. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Bob Bouchard and Victor Riley, members of the Assembly and Senate who gather here today, and the real patron of this home, Mayor Corning. He's not with us, certainly. He's been so long behind this work that we owe him special recognition on any occasion like this. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting Mrs. Carey and me to join you for this special occasion. And we took the liberty of bringing along with us our granddaughter, Evangelica Stamalos, who's visiting from Chicago. And I want to thank also the therapists and teachers who allowed us to walk through again and see the progress being made among the wonderful children who are gathered here and all those who participate in this work. As Bob has said, for the past 20 years, I've been involved in the struggle for the disabled to secure their rights to lives of independence and to self-fulfillment. I was very glad to be joined by my wife this past year when we received the award as the National UCP Man of the Year. And it was because of what I might do, but I think also because of the work she has done as a longtime member of the UCP committee in Chicago. So in that struggle, we're joined, and today represents another victory. The expansion of the UCP Center will mean an improvement of services, yes, for the developmentally disabled, and the neurologically impaired in 11 counties. 11 counties coming to this place where 600 young children and others are now being cared for. And that number, of course, will expand. As Jim Mantrone was saying, our great Commissioner of Developmental Disabilities, there are new causes adding to the client population: auto accidents, the adverse effects of some of the newer drugs that have been used on children and others. And these new causes will produce newer needs for this kind of treatment. Here we'll have a place for severely disabled adults, clinics and medical services, an equipment workshop for useful pursuits, for rehabilitation and assessment of the progress we're making. And this achievement is more than just a matter of bricks and mortar and money and machinery, for it shows the partnership that makes all this possible will continue to be the basis for New York's progress in allowing our disabled citizens the full realization of their rights. Here in Albany, UCP, of course, has had a central role in this great partnership. It has helped to bring together the Office of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities and the vocational rehabilitation work with 12 area banks in order to finance this project. Now, I know banks are under great stress right now, and these are difficult times, so it's all the more reason why you deserve our commendation, Victor Riley and all the rest, for coming together in this consortium to help in this much-needed facility. And at a time when our state resources are hard-pressed, and where the federal government, in all candor, is recklessly retreating from its commitments, the partnership of the public and private sectors becomes increasingly important. We cannot let the disabled be seen as merely another budget item to be subjected or subtracted or divided or deleted. The work of the people here is much more important than that. Nor can we ever again accept the segregation of the disabled into lives of uselessness and despair. We therefore must proceed with this state's commitment to creating the nation's finest system of care for its retarded and developmentally disabled citizens, and we must recognize the responsibilities of government and the private sector in this work. Plenty more to go, huh? Well done, Victor. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, Liz.
Deputy Commissioner Slazak and your program associate and our friend Dr. Jeffrey Sachs are all persons for whom we thank you too, Governor.
It appears that the local aid agreement is fungible. In other words, we can put it together, and if we can get a letter of intent signed by the leaders indicating that in October this will be legislated, I believe that will be sufficient to carry us until then. We're in contact with the local officials such as Mayor Griffin of Buffalo and others, and it's our hope that this bridge will allow them to carry over until the October session, and it's very near completion as to an agreement.
Will that hold true for Yonkers too, Governor?
Yes, I'm speaking of Yonkers and all of the cities involved, Yonkers and Buffalo as well.
How crucial do you see this bill, Governor, at this point?
Well, it would free up the $79 million which we had in the financial plan as part of the understanding when the budget was resolved, budget difficulty. And this would allow us to make sure that people are not laid off in Buffalo and Yonkers and elsewhere while the legislature waits to get back to its business in October.
Is there an agreement on a formula for the distribution of that money?
Yes, that's the agreement I'm talking about, and I can say that we're very near completion on that. All parties are on board. Now it's a matter of having the letter of understanding, letter of intent agreed in writing by the legislative leaders.
How much is it worth, Governor? 79 million or 100?
Close to 80 million, 79 to 80 million.
Includes money
Not
for
100.
villages and towns?
Some villages and towns, yes, on the basis of a formula of need.
Governor,
Really, the cities are the key matter.
there was some talk about expanding the inmate population at Attica because of the overcrowding. How serious a problem do you see overcrowding at this point, and would putting 250 more inmates in Attica cause more of a problem?
If there were an alternative, I guess we'd pursue it. But lacking an alternative, we're announcing that we have to go to such strenuous and great lengths as putting people in Attica above the recommended limitation of the McKay Commission. We're doing that because there's no other alternative. All the more reason now why we need the passage of the bond issue to construct the new prisons and get rid of some old prisons.
The prison population is at 104% of capacity. Are you still ruling out double bunking?
Very definitely. Double bunking must not become the policy of this state. That could ignite riots, that could make trouble, make it more difficult for the corrections officers, make it much more difficult for us to keep the peace in the prisons.
Governor, how is the Corrections Department going to avoid the kind of problems in Attica that triggered the problems in 1971?
Very simply, we have a great many more things going for us than we did in Attica. We have a much better trained correctional guard system. We also have the SIRS teams, which have been put into place at local prison difficulties and in state prisons. When difficulties have erupted, they go in without the kind of excess armament that was used at Attica.
But I'm talking about the factors that led up to the riot itself.
Many things of that kind have been changed. Health facilities in Attica itself. There was one rather aged physician only for the entire population. We've changed that. We have prison health. The guards, as I said, are better trained. The whole prison staff, from feeding and kitchens and so forth, are all in better shape than they were at the time of the Attica riots.
Governor, on the local aid question again, the Yonkers mayor was saying yesterday that a written agreement wouldn't be sufficient, that because of the way his city's budget is constructed, that the aid package had to be in place, had to be instantiated.
Well, I don't think that's essentially true. I think that he has to deal with banks, he has to do borrowing, and in the past, and we've had that situation in Yonkers, I would hope the banks and the lenders would be the same as the Albany banks we've seen at play here today.
Governor, what are the prospects now for Westway, given the comments of Speaker Fink and Mayor Koch over the most recent comments?
We have a deadline to make, and Bill Hennessy's been a general, been a chief on Westway, has plugged in all along the line, met all the requirements of the federal government. He's moving ahead right now. There's a meeting taking place down near City Hall in New York City, and Bill Hennessy's down there. I've sent Bob Mogata down there as well to confer with Deputy Mayor Wagner. We believe we're very close to a memorandum of understanding so that Westway can be built.
Governor, do you see any acceptable form of a cult bill for this state, or is that an issue which you feel should just be laid out and buried?
Well, I certainly have no intention, nor did I, ever sign a bill that would create grave constitutional problems and plunge these issues into the courts. That would not help those whose parents are concerned. That wouldn't help resolve the difficulty of the so-called religious groups who do proselytize people. An unenforceable law would be of no help to anybody. This law would have been unenforceable.
What kind of law do you think could be, what kind of changes do you see necessary before you could sign a law like that?
Our counsel, Jack McGoldrick, is always available to sit down with those who sponsor such bills and see if there is a constitutionally acceptable solution. I certainly can't draft such a bill here in the open today.
Are you opposed, though, to some form of bill which allows people in
I frankly don't know how at this stage to draft a constitutional measure that will allow you to enter religious premises and take people out or prevent people from going in. It's a very difficult bill to draft. I don't know how to do it at this time.
Governor, the Daily News has a rather satirical article today in which you were 1985 sitting at home wearing Bermuda shorts and brown shoes, your political career over in 1985. Do you consider that to be a realistic picture at this point?
1985, career being over? No, I think I did see a little bit of that article. My quarrel with the article was it said I'd be drinking Schaefer beer. If Bill Reel knew Brooklyn as well as I do, and New York City as well as I do, he wouldn't advertise Schaefer beer. It moved out. Give a plug to Miller's and it'll have more readability.
Do you see your career over in 1985?
That's up to the voters.
You had any conversations with David Garth lately?
No, I have not.
Governor, Mayor Koch yesterday, according to published reports, said...
Predicted my career would be over at various times in the last 20 years.
According to published reports, Mayor Koch yesterday claimed principal credit for passing the mass transit package and said your office was ineffective in dealing with that.
I think I've said over and over again that my style is to let the credit go wherever it will, as long as we get the job done. I just came from a trip on personal and family matters from Illinois, where they have a great difficulty. There, the state did nothing for the city of Chicago. Here, we've done a great deal. Whatever comments the mayor may make, I'd rather see those comments directed at what he's going to do to make the subway safer and do his share of making travel in New York more acceptable.
Thank you, gentlemen.